The glass doors parted with a quiet whoosh as Imani Rhodes stepped into the grand lobby of the Halston Regency Hotel, one of downtown Chicago's most exclusive stays. Her luggage rolled smoothly behind her, a sleek black suitcase that matched the tone of her tailored coat. The lobby gleamed, polished marble floors, gold-trimmed columns, and a chandelier that looked like it belonged in a royal palace. But Imani wasn't here to be impressed. She was here because her father had insisted on booking her a VIP suite to unwind after back-to-back meetings in New York. She walked toward the front desk, calm but focused. Her heels clicked softly as she approached the counter, where a sharply dressed man in a navy vest and stiff smile looked up from his computer. His name tag read Chad. "Good afternoon," she said. "I believe there's a reservation under Rhodes. VIP suite. My father booked it for me." Chad looked her up and down, not in a flirtatious way, more like he was scanning her, searching for cracks in a story he'd already decided wasn't real. "VIP suite?" he repeated, arching one eyebrow. "Are you sure it's this location?" Imani nodded, undeterred. "Yes, the Halston Regency, downtown Chicago. He's a regular guest here." Chad tapped a few keys, not bothering to hide his doubt. "And your name again?" "Imani Rhodes," he typed, paused, and frowned. I don't see any reservation under that name. Are you sure your father booked it properly?" She kept her tone even. "Yes, he confirmed it with me this morning." He gave a tight chuckle. "Well, sometimes people think they've reserved something when they really haven't. Happens all the time." Imani took a breath, resisting the urge to roll her eyes. "Could you check under his name? Harold Rhodes?" Chad hesitated, then muttered something under his breath and started typing again. Another pause, then a light smirk formed on his lips. "Still nothing," he said. "Sorry, miss, but our VIP suites are typically reserved well in advance by established clientele." She raised an eyebrow. "And you think I'm not one of those?" Chad leaned slightly forward. "Look, we have standard rooms available if you'd like something more within reach. They're very nice, recently renovated." "I didn't ask." "For a standard room," she said, voice cool as steel. "I'm not here by mistake. I came for the reservation my father made. He told me to ask for the executive Sapphire suite." Chad's smile sharpened. "Well, we can't just hand over our top suites to anyone who walks in claiming to know someone important." A young woman from the back office stepped forward. Her name tag said Maya. She looked at Imani, then glanced quickly at Chad. "Think I saw a Rhodes reservation come through yesterday morning," Maya offered. "It was flagged as high priority." Chad cut her off with a hand gesture. "I've got it, Maya." Imani turned her gaze back to Chad. "Are you refusing to check properly?" He ignored the question. "Miss, if you're trying to pull something, I'd suggest being honest now before it becomes embarrassing." She let out a soft exhale, then pulled out her phone. "Perhaps it's easier if I just call him." Chad gave a light scoff. "Let me guess, he's a lawyer? Or a senator?" Imani didn't answer. She simply tapped the screen and held the phone to her ear. Calm, composed. She wasn't interested in proving anything to Chad. She just wanted the truth to speak for itself. And soon enough, it would. The phone rang twice before a deep, composed voice came through. Imani barely had to speak. "Hey, Dad. I'm at the front desk. Apparently, they can't locate the reservation." There was a pause. A very specific kind of silence, the type that made people on the other end sharpen their focus. Then came his answer. "I'll be there in 15 minutes." Imani ended the call and slipped her phone back into her coat pocket. She said nothing more. Her expression remained neutral, but her posture straightened just slightly. Chad leaned his elbows on the counter, clearly unimpressed. "Calling Daddy to save the day?" he asked, the sarcasm poorly veiled beneath forced politeness. Imani simply stared at him. She had heard this tone before. Disbelief disguised as authority. Disrespect masked as casual banter. There was no need to respond. Silence, she had learned, was sometimes the loudest statement in the room. Chad returned to his screen, pretending to check something again, but his fingers barely moved. Another guest stepped up beside Imani, a middle-aged white man with a briefcase and Bluetooth headset. Chad's attitude shifted instantly. "Welcome back, Mr. Higgins. Room 1704, correct? We've upgraded you to a suite." The man nodded with a smile, handed over his card, and was gone in under a minute. Imani turned her eyes toward Maya, who had returned to the office doorway. Their gazes met briefly, and Maya looked uncomfortable. She opened her mouth, as if to speak again, but Chad shot her a sharp glance. She backed away quietly. Imani folded her arms and moved to the side, letting other guests pass. Her calm had not faded, but something underneath simmered. An awareness of how easily people in uniforms could misjudge who belonged and who didn't. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. The hum of luggage wheels across tile filled the air. Conversations echoed around the lobby. Chad checked his watch, visibly smug. "Still no word from your VIP?" She didn't answer. Instead, she glanced at the grand entrance as two black luxury SUVs pulled up to the curb outside. The valet scrambled forward. Bellhops suddenly appeared where none had been moments ago. A uniformed doorman straightened his jacket and held the doors open as the back seat of the first SUV opened. Out stepped Harold Rhodes. He wore a dark gray overcoat over a tailored three-piece suit. His presence was quiet, but it shifted the atmosphere of the lobby the moment he appeared. People stopped mid-sentence. A concierge from across the hall tilted her head in recognition. Even Maya stepped back into view, eyes widening. Harold's stride was neither fast nor slow. It was deliberate, controlled. He crossed the marble lobby without glancing at anyone except his daughter. Imani stood still as he approached, her expression softening just slightly. "You all right?" he asked, placing one hand on her shoulder. "I am now," she replied. Harold turned to the front desk, his eyes settling on Chad with the precision of someone used to identifying problems the moment. He stepped into a room. "Are you the manager who told my daughter her reservation didn't exist?" Chad blinked. He glanced at Maya, then back at Harold. "Sir, I was just trying to verify some information. She didn't have confirmation." "She had her name," Harold interrupted, voice smooth but unyielding. "And that's the only confirmation required when her last name matches the one paying for the top-floor suite." Chad's posture stiffened. "I didn't realize that," Harold cut in again, "is the problem." More staff had gathered now, standing near enough to listen, far enough to pretend they weren't. Maya stepped forward quietly. "Mr. Rhodes, we did receive your reservation yesterday. It was flagged for early VIP check-in. I tried to bring it up, but—" Harold nodded to her. "Thank you." Then his eyes turned back to Chad, who had lost all trace of confidence. "You didn't see a problem in ignoring her, dismissing her, and offering her something you assumed was within reach. But now that you see me, you recognize a mistake." "No, sir, it wasn't about—" "Don't explain," Harold said. "Just think about what it costs to misjudge people who don't fit the image you created in your head." Chad's mouth opened, but no sound followed. Imani glanced around. At the now silent lobby. The man who had once mocked her for calling Daddy now couldn't speak in her father's presence. Harold turned to his daughter. "Let's go upstairs." And with that, they walked toward the elevator, leaving behind a trail of realization too heavy for Chad to escape. The elevator doors slid open on the 24th floor, revealing a private corridor lined with dark oak panels and warm ambient lighting. Imani stepped out first, followed by her father. A bellhop trailed behind them with her luggage, quiet and respectful, casting nervous glances at Harold Rhodes every few steps. The door to the Sapphire suite was already unlocked, the lights gently glowing from inside. A bottle of chilled, sparkling water and a handwritten welcome card rested on the table. The view from the windows stretched wide over downtown Chicago, skyscrapers glittering beneath a gray afternoon sky. Imani turned toward her father as the bellhop excused himself with a soft, "Enjoy your stay." The door clicked shut behind them. "Did you have to come all the way here?" she asked, folding her arms as she leaned against the wall. Harold took off his coat and laid it neatly over the back of the armchair. "Would you have preferred I stayed away?" She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes drifted to the city skyline, her expression unreadable. "I just hate that I needed backup. I handled it calmly. I didn't lose control. But none of that mattered until you showed up." He sat down, folding his hands together. "You didn't need backup. You needed accountability. I simply ensured someone else saw what you already knew was true." Her jaw clenched. "He didn't see me as someone worth respecting. Not until you walked through those doors." "That's the world we live in," Harold replied. "But that doesn't mean we let it go unchallenged." Imani exhaled, pulled her braid over her shoulder, and walked toward the minibar. She poured herself a glass of water and took a slow sip. "It's just exhausting, walking into rooms where people already decided who you are." Harold studied her closely. "Do you know why I booked this place for you?" She shook her head. "Because I wanted you to walk into a space that treated you like the person you are, not the one they imagine. You deserved peace, not a power struggle." She nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of his words. Downstairs, Chad stood at the front desk, trying to appear composed as hotel leadership arrived. A woman in a tailored suit approached, Annalise Jordan, the regional guest relations director. Her sharp heels clicked with purpose as she walked directly toward him, her expression unreadable. "I just got a call from ownership," she said plainly. "Apparently, Mr. Rhodes is not only a regular guest, he also happens to hold a financial interest in this property." Chad's face paled. "I didn't know." "That's obvious," she interrupted, arms folded. "He watched you dismiss his daughter, then watched you squirm when you realized who she was." "I was following standard procedure. She didn't provide a confirmation number." "You mean the one Maya tried to mention, but you cut her off?" He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Annalise's gaze narrowed. "You judged her. Plain and simple. Based on appearance, not facts." Chad looked around the lobby, as if seeking support from invisible allies. "I've worked here for 6 years. I've never had a complaint." "Now you do," she replied, coldly. "And this one came from someone with the power to decide whether you keep your position." Upstairs, Imani sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through her phone. News moved fast, and word had already begun spreading through quiet industry channels. One of her father's acquaintances had texted, "Just heard about what happened. Proud of how you carried yourself." Another message from a family friend. "Read, people need to see this. They need to know it still happens." She sighed, setting the phone down. "I didn't want to make a statement. I just wanted a room." "You did more than that," Harold said. "You showed restraint when It would have been easier to explode. Imani gave him a sideways glance. Sometimes I wonder if silence really works, if dignity ever wins in moments like that. It doesn't always feel like it, he replied. But over time, grace leaves deeper marks than noise ever will. He stood and walked toward the window, hands in his pockets. That man wasn't just rude. He was reckless. He assumed you didn't belong in the very place you had every right to be. I know, she said quietly. And I wonder how many others walked away instead of speaking up. Too many. She stood beside him, staring at the traffic lights blinking far below. Do you think they'll do anything about him? Now that the right people are paying attention, yes, Harold replied. But this wasn't just about him. It's about what people see and what they refuse to. Imani let the silence stretch between them. Then she turned back toward the center of the suite. I don't want this to be about who my father is. I want it to be about who I am. Harold smiled softly. Then speak. Your voice is the part they never expected. She picked up her phone. Again, not to rant or call anyone out, but to write. Not for revenge, just for truth. Something honest, something lasting. She would make sure the world remembered who she was, with or without a name anyone recognized. The morning sunlight filtered softly through the curtains of the sapphire suite. Imani sat at the desk near the window, a half-empty cup of coffee beside her, untouched for the last hour. She stared at her laptop screen, the blinking cursor waiting patiently for her next sentence. Her fingers hovered over the keys, not hesitant, just deliberate. She had written the first paragraph 3 times already. Each version felt too defensive, too polished, too cautious. But today didn't call for caution. It called for honesty. Behind her, Harold stood by the window, speaking quietly on the phone. His voice carried the kind of calm authority that didn't need to rise to be heard. When he ended the call, he turned to his daughter. They've started their internal review. Chad's been placed on temporary leave until further notice. Imani didn't look away from the screen. Is that accountability or damage control? Sometimes they look the same at first, he said. The difference is what happens next. She nodded. I don't want an apology wrapped in corporate language. I don't want a discount voucher or a free stay. What do you want? She paused, then looked up at him. For the next girl who walks in looking like me, not to be questioned before she's even welcomed. Harold gave a quiet nod, then stepped out of the room to give her space. Imani turned back to her laptop. This time, she didn't second-guess. Her words. I came here expecting rest. I was sent to the side instead, told the suite wasn't available, told my name wasn't enough. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I stayed quiet. That didn't work, either. My presence was treated like a mistake. Until my father arrived, only then did I become visible. She stopped and took a breath. She didn't want to make the post about her father. His arrival had turned the tide, yes, but her stillness, her refusal to shrink, had started the shift long before that. Downstairs, the lobby felt different. Staff spoke in hushed tones. Chad's absence had created a vacuum nobody dared fill. Maya answered phones carefully, mindful of every word she used. The general manager had returned from an off-site meeting earlier than expected, pulled aside by 2 board members who wanted a complete explanation. Chad sat in a back room, filling out a statement he had rewritten 3 times. His confidence had drained away, leaving only uncertainty. He kept looking at the lobby security footage on the screen in front of him, watching the moment Harold entered, again and again. That walk, that silence, that undeniable shift in power. Elsewhere in the hotel, quiet conversations continued. A housekeeper who had seen Imani the day before whispered to a colleague, "She never raised her voice, and still." They questioned her. By afternoon, Imani's post had gone live. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't long, but it carried weight. It spoke plainly of what happened and how it felt. Not as a victim, not as someone demanding pity, but as a person calling for recognition, for dignity, for something that should not need to be proven. Her words traveled fast. Within hours, the story reached hospitality blogs, equity forums, and social platforms. Screenshots were shared by travelers, business professionals, and educators. Some thanked her for her composure. Others shared similar moments when their identity became the reason they were stopped, questioned, or doubted. A well-known journalist retweeted the post with the caption, "This is what grace under pressure looks like." Imani's inbox filled quickly. Friends reached out. Strangers, too. A flight attendant wrote to say, "This happens in the air, too." A law student messaged, "They questioned me at my own internship entrance. I understand." Not everyone was kind, of course. A few comments rolled in, mocking her, claiming she was playing the victim card. Imani didn't engage. She didn't need to. Her story wasn't up for debate. In the evening, her father joined her in the hotel's rooftop lounge. The skyline stretched in every direction, the lights below glowing soft and steady. They offered a formal apology, he said. "The board has drafted a new guest policy training program. They want your input." She sipped her drink slowly. "I didn't write this to fix their system." "No," he said. "But you made them realize it was broken." She looked at him, her voice steady. "Will they fix it?" He didn't promise. "They'll try, and if they don't, someone else will make sure they do." They sat in silence for a while. Then Imani spoke, softer this time. "Sometimes I think being composed is seen as being weak." "No," Harold replied. "Being composed is refusing to give someone the reaction they expect. It forces them to look deeper." She smiled faintly. "It still hurts." "I know," he said. They rose from the table, walked back toward the elevator, and descended into a building that no longer looked the same. What had started as a simple check-in had become something more. A reminder, a warning, a shift, and Imani knew, no matter how the hotel spun the story, she had already told the version that mattered.